from Eldest Books. Welcome back to my channel. This is the third installment of the Shadowhunter Chronicles reading vlog. I am so excited for it to be here now. I feel like getting this part of the vlog has taken me forever. I will leave the links to the other videos in this series in the description box below, so you can feel free to go check those out. Now, all of these vlogs have spoilers, so if you have not read these books, I suggest coming back when you have, and I would love to hear your thoughts. In this vlog, I will be covering the Mortal Instruments books 4 and 5. Unfortunately, I was hoping to break up all of these vlogs with the trilogies and keeping all the trilogies together. So far in parts 1 and 2, I managed to do that. I decided it was probably not a good idea to group all 3 books. I just had too many thoughts and too many feels. You didn't want to sit here for 2 hours listening to me babble. So I had to break it up. It hurts a little bit because I realize I do in fact have strange OCD tendencies when it comes to perfect groupings. Anyway, I hope that you enjoy this. Let's go ahead and get into it. I am so happy to be back in the time period of my favorite characters that got me hooked into the series to begin with. Where we left off, the City of Glass. So Jace had died, although I guess we're not supposed to know that he actually had died and passed on, as its consequences serve as the primary conflict in the City of Fallen Angels. Regardless, he died and Clary asked the angel to save him. So the angel killed Valentine because it was Valentine who actually summoned the angel. And angels don't like to be called on like dogs. So earlier, Jason actually stabbed Sebastian and they assumed that he had died. Sebastian, again, is the real Jonathan Morgenstern. The real Sebastian died but you should have read these so you know what I'm talking about anyways. So it was Izzy who said that she saw Sebastian or Jonathan float down the river, so they assumed that he was dead. So getting into the 4th book, City of Fallen Angels, we have picked up the pace from Clockwork Princess, and we have extremely layered plot and character development, and just a lot happening. So it's a really exciting read. Kind of hard to know exactly where to start. Overall, I feel like I'm getting the hang of Cassandra Clare's style of writing and storytelling. Certain things are becoming a bit predictable, as when I can tell that she's foreshadowing or leading into something that will be important later. Which is kind of interesting because I was reading a book earlier that I felt that the foreshadowing was a bit too much and it gave away too much in the plot. But then I look back at these books and I think that Cassandra Clare does that same thing. However, her plot twists are very unexpected still, like they're still just as impactful and still just as shocking. So I can't get enough of trying to decipher what she's going to throw at us. It's also really fun once everything has happened at the end of telling, now that I'm pretty deep into the series now, that I can kind of go back and pick out the Easter eggs that were dropped, and that's been really fun to do. A lot of my predictions definitely have come to pass. However, sometimes I don't know how it's exactly going to play out. So this book really focuses on Simon's storyline a lot. And we get a new significant character named Kyle, or Jordan. And then there's Alec, who comes out to his parents. I think actually he came out to his parents at the end of the last book. But now we are kind of delving into what that means for Alec and his family and his relationship with his family and him and Magnus. As we get into this book, Alec and Magnus Bane have been traveling Europe, which is the spin-off series. I forget what it's called at this moment. We also get to learn a lot more about the vampire ranks. Plus, going on in the background is Jocelyn and Luke planning for their wedding. So Simon, as we know, is a daylighter. He has managed to dodge Raphael, and he's trying to cling on to what he knew of his human life. So his friends, living at home with his mom and his sister, keeping up with his band and his friends, who also know that he is a vampire. He's also been maintaining not eating human blood, but he's finding it more and more challenging. In fact, something that really stood out to me about Simon is in the scope of young adult novels is that I really like that Simon has a separate social life than just Clary and just the Shadowhunters, as kind of a more sidekick character who's significant but ultimately a sidekick character. A lot of YA novels just really don't delve into their lives as their own person. they are only ever just consumed in the main character's lives. So I really like that they take Simon and really develop him as his own individual person. He has his relationship with his mundane friends, who he does the whole band thing with. He has the Shadowhunters, he has Maya, who's a werewolf, and Raphael and the vampires, and his family. It's just not something you really see a whole lot. We have another type of love triangle as Simon is balancing two girlfriends, Maya and Isabel. I actually really like this because he's not being a jerky player. It's a casual, like, teen dating relationship, highlighting the fact that it was just a bit of an oversight on his part as he's not used to navigating relationships. He's used to just being everyone's friend and suddenly realizes he's more to both of these girls, without even realizing how he got into this predicament. Meanwhile, also trying to figure out his own new vampire status, so it's reasonable and it's believable, especially with Isabel really underestimating their relationship, because she is the one that has always said that they are not exclusive. I don't like this just because I still can't get over Isabel being with Simon in any serious manner, but as each of these books go, you see her getting more and more hung up on Simon, which I guess I like. At least it wasn't insta-lovey. It's very, very slowly progressive because Isabel is completely changing and developing as her own character too. And she also does explain herself later as a family secret of infidelity leads her mother to leaving the young impressionable Isabel with a mistrust in matters of the heart. Okay, I guess. Kyle, or Jordan, our new character, shows up with a year-old flyer to the garage band practice, wanting to join as lead singer. I knew from the get-go that there was something up with this kid. I do like the build-up to his character though. So back to the vampire ranks, we see Camille again, and she has these like human subjugates, which we learn all about that. And that was really cool. So she has disappeared for a really long time and she left the clan to Raphael, although I guess she is technically the leader, which we also learned when she first came to New York. She was really ruthless in her acquisition of the clan and building the clan very quickly. And then Raphael was like a co-partner. Also, each of these vampires are saying that the other one is illegally killing humans. So who do we believe? So Simon and Raphael really do not get along. Camille gets Simon to keep a secret for her, which he winds up having to spill the beans on her. So the Shadowhunters and him set a trap for her, which I feel like in retrospect, she knew that that was going to happen. It was all part of her big plan because she like plays the long game. So anyways, when they catch her, I honestly thought it was too easy, which leads me to why I thought that she did it on purpose. Because honestly, she's just like way too smart for that. So then she requests to speak to Magnus Bane and she will only answer to him. So they call Alec and Magnus home from their trip and they have a rather public discussion regarding Magnus's eternal life, full of partners. I did like this part because in true Magnus fashion, he does divulge too much information right in front of Mr. and Mrs. Lightwood. Or no, right in front of Mrs. Lightwood. But I hated the scene because Alec acted like a jealous, immature child. I mean, I guess he is 18, so he's technically still fairly immature. And jealousy is okay, but the way he handled it was so not like Alec. I guess people do change when they have a love interest sometimes, but I think Alec particularly would have shown more restraint, or especially in that situation in front of his mom and this vampire and everybody. I feel like he particularly would have saved this discussion for a more private venue. Worse still, he pouted and cried it out during the rehearsal all the way through to the rehearsal dinner scene. It also seems like Alec would understand because he's a Shadowhunter. He knows that obviously Magnus has lived a long time, as warlocks do and vampires do. Like, I don't know. I just feel like he would have understood. So Camille talks to Simon about why Raphael is really leaving him to his own devices and explains to him that it's more like he's purposefully casting him out and that Simon will eventually see that he needs the vampires for protection and other things. He also tells him that Raphael is purposely withholding information from him. I actually do see Raphael's side, especially with Simon being so close to the Shadowhunters. She also backs this up that says eventually everyone he knows will be dead. It doesn't really stick with him until he is in the interrogation room with Magnus and Camille, and Magnus leaves him with his wisdom on eternity. And then I think it really starts to kind of sink in. So Simon and the band end up getting a gig, and then Simon becomes overcome with his hunger and eats his one true fan, who's like 13 years old, named Maureen. And I was so not expecting this until right before. I really thought that they were going to actually end up stretching this out, but nope. He eats her, but thankfully does not kill her. So Kyle helps Simon by putting her into a cab, and then high on human blood, he and Izzy are cozy when Maya shows up, holding a flyer, and I knew at this moment when she showed up that Kyle had set that up. I started to actually suspect that Kyle was Maya's abusive ex from the get-go when Simon moved into Kyle's apartment, because at any mention of Maya, Kyle would react. They also mention a medallion that Kyle wears with a wolf on it, so it made me really start to think that Kyle was actually a werewolf, because at this time we don't know that. So it's after this that Kyle explains himself as being really named Jordan, who's Maya's ex. But after we get the full story, Simon is about to take off, but he decides against it because of what he had done to Maureen. So he can really start to be more sympathetic to Jordan. So I really liked this moment. This book is such a huge turning point for Simon. It's no longer like fun and games. Like, he's having to really grow up really fast and to come to terms with what has happened to him. He's made a serious mistake, and Maureen's body is found. So she died. I actually thought that Jordan had something to do with this at the beginning. I think that we were really meant to think that way because they were really building up his character to have all of these secrets. Potentially sinister and ulterior motives. But I'm really glad that he was just misunderstood. And he can now be a completely different type of friend for Simon because they can share in this. So that leads into Jordan, which is a whole new layer, and he's part of another group called the Praetor Lupus, a group founded by Woolsey Scott, who we meet in TID. And they help the all new to the Super Club, baby wolves and fledgling vampires who are left behind and can become a danger to themselves and to other people. So I freaking love this. That is so cool. They are completely on their own outside of the Clave and the politics that we have learned in this series. And it's really refreshing to have this unbiased, who are not caught up into the segregation of the species. And it's really realistic too, because there's always some other group out there who doesn't see things the same way, or becomes society's helping hand or charity group. Okay, so Clary. Before we really dive into Clary and Jace and that whole thing, I wanted to mention that now that Jocelyn is in full-fledged mom mode, she's leaving the Shadowhunters and marrying Luke, who is a downworld. So it's not like she could be a Shadowhunter anyway, because they don't do that kind of thing. But the Clave is in the middle of working some Clave laws. Clary obviously wants to be a Shadowhunter. She dropped out of high school to train as a Shadowhunter. And it mentions that Jocelyn is not happy with this, which I totally would agree. Because if I was her mom, I would not be happy with her dropping out of high school either. For now, while the Clave is in limbo, Clary is living with her mom. But as we have learned in the Infernal Devices, this could potentially mean that once Clary is a Shadowhunter, she can no longer have a relationship with her mom and Luke as per Clave law. And that is really sad. I really like Jocelyn's mom mode. She's a real mom that you don't ever really see in YA. She's worried about her daughter having sex with her boyfriend, mandates that she's never allowed to have sleepovers at the institute where her boyfriend lives. She has a curfew, and she's keeping tabs with Marseille about her training and what she's actually accomplishing, making sure she's not over there just making out with her boyfriend all the time. This was awesome. Thank you for having active parenting. So now, finally onto the Jace and Clary situation. So we leave City of Glass with the relief that these two lovebirds are thankfully not related and can finally be together. Yay! But of course, all throughout this book, Jace has another drama and he's being way too sketch and driving me up the flipping wall. He keeps dodging Clary and won't explain anything. And I have this love-hate feeling with the miscommunication between people. By all rights, I loathe it, but I do understand the need to build up the angst and the excitement and all of that. But we've done this before. And every encounter, Jace will say that he loves her, but also can't be with her in some weird, cryptic, tortured soul kind of way. And then I'm thinking, on the other hand, when is enough for this pair? I about lost my shit when she finally demands he give her an answer and he brings up Valentine. In the previous 2 books, it was all Jace could do because he was a monster because of his dad, his Valentine, and now we know he's a Herondel and he's not a Morgenstern. So hedging on that he's a monster because he was raised by Valentine now, I'm just over it by now. Like, put your big boy panties on and get over it. Get on with your life already. But then his nightmare has manifested itself into real life. I pretty much ate my words or my thoughts. Thankfully, Clary was immediately the voice of reason and says, this is not you. Someone is doing this to you. So she marches him off to the Silent City immediately to get answers. I really liked this, and I liked that they didn't try to drag this out longer because I was so fed up with it by this point. I really liked the reasoning of what has gotten into Jace, because I was worried that it was going to be lame, but then it's Cassandra Clare, and it was not lame, thankfully. I knew she would not let me down. So the Silent Brothers know immediately that Jace and Clary have been keeping his actual death a secret all this time. I don't know why, but they did. So they explain that when he was resurrected, it was like being reborn. So we hear that the Nephilim get a series of runes when they are born, and it's a ritual to protect them. Since he's been reborn, he's been stripped of that protection, leaving him open and susceptible to influence. And now there's a demon messing around in his head. Okay, is it just me, or is this a little bit of a plot hole? Maybe we'll find out in the future. Clary was born in the mundane world. So did she get the protection runes too? I feel like she would not have. Back to the Infernal Devices, Tessa's mother didn't either because she didn't even know that Tessa was part Shadowhunter. So whatever, it's not a big deal to me, but just an observation. The ending. So it's taken me a while to figure out exactly how to sum this up. I finished this book back in February, and as I'm filming this, it is April. Literally the last day of April. So it's been a while, and quarantine, homeschooling, trying to even find any time to read, any time to film, it's been crazy. So yeah, it's been a while. I'm referring back to my notes and what I had prepared for this video. In the midst of all this life stuff, I just really don't know what to say about the ending. It was all right. It was really out there. I think the most intriguing thing was that it was Lilith who was the antagonist. She claims Jonathan Morgenstern as her own son because it was her blood that runs in his veins. So then Clary and everyone leaves, and I knew something bad was going to happen. Oh, right. So Jace gets a rune on his chest, right? So he is holding Clary during this whole thing and can't control himself. He's gone half evil. So Clary turns around and slices it, and then he's back to himself, and we think, okay, Jace is with us. So then he's left alone up there in the loft with everybody dead or whatever, with Sebastian dead finally, who was not, they didn't finish the ritual, so they thought. Clary's watching him but leaving him alone. I'm why are you doing this? Why don't you just stay up there with him and walk down with him? It was kind of a lame way to orchestrate this whole thing, and it was a very dramatic scene change. Then I can't remember if it was the very end of that book or at the very beginning of the next book, we find out Jace is missing and Sebastian is missing. Obviously that's where we leave off with that, but I will come back and tell you what I thought of City of Lost Souls, because oh my god, it was so good. It was so good. So that wraps up that book.